anyways, when I get the sense that people come to me just based on that, like I'm gonna work with Jason Isbell's designer.
Yeah.
I'm good at recognizing that and not doing it.
Okay.
You know, when I sense that there is not like a sort of connection to my work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, that is not even like an ego thing anymore for me. That's just like efficient and sensible, you know, and saving everyone's money and time.
There's a woman on this train, she's looking at me with eyes dark as lead. I couldn't really see that her life's been over for more than 3 years now.
Welcome to the Marinade, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 184, and our guest is Pearl Rachinsky. Illustrator, designer, photographer, it seems like Pearl can do just about anything. She's a multi-disciplinary visual artist who's worked with the likes of Jason Isbell, John Moreland, and Joe Pug, among many others. Pearl's life has been a fascinating journey, and she is a kind soul. We caught up in the green room ahead of John Moreland with Jordan Foley and Tyler Hood at Tuffy's Music Box in Sanford, Florida on an incredible night to talk about crushing the patriarchy, making discerning creative choices, growing up in an artistic environment, and so much more. Everyone, it is my great pleasure to bring you my conversation with Pearl Rachinsky.
And I thought I was going insane. The aisle led me and I could hear the refrain. Either I jump off or join them to sing. And they were singing la da di da 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 di da da.
First papa
Is that right?
to sound check we've done.
Is that right?
Perfect. Okay, we're hot. Let's do this. Pearl, thank you for doing this. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to talking
Thanks
talking
for
with you.
having me.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We just had a really fun off-mic conversation that brought up a whole bunch of things that I want to talk to you about too. But
Okay, good.
I'm interested in your upbringing in Edmonton, growing up with a artist father, and just sort of like what your early days were like, and what it was like to grow up around that kind of energy.
That's a good question. So my parents are both first generation Polish/Ukrainian babies of immigrants. I would say, we grew up very middle class. My dad was a mail carrier for Canada Post. My mom was a stay-at-home, as they call them these days, and they raised 4 kids. So there's my older brother Adam, my older sister Jordana, myself third, and then Dave. So 4 kids, mom, dad, and we grew up in North Edmonton. And like you said, my dad is an artist, which is how I came to love making art. But yeah, I don't know. I guess like part of that was, it's loaded. Sorry, it's big. It was winter a lot for 8 months of the year, most of the time, and my parents also really loved music. Especially my dad. They were, I would say, like kind of music nerds. They had a vinyl collection. They're also pretty like earthy. They would garden and pickle things. And my dad would even, sorry, not my dad. Well, actually, my dad made his own wine. My mom would sew our diapers. So they were kind of like these sort of like crunchy granola, sustainability, what have you types before that there was much language for that in the world. Anyways, so yeah, they were sort of hippies. Dad was an artist. Mom was she was a mom. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that was it. It was just like, grew up kind of, it was a little dysfunctional. And like I said, middle class, but maybe even a little lower middle class. Not too much ambition in the home. I think that being a third child gave me ambition because I was sort of like a latchkey kid by and large. And I think that's kind of what drove me to care about making art, because I needed to be seen. I remember feeling pretty invisible in the bigger family situation because, it was just a lot of people and it was a loud household. And like I said, there was just kind of dysfunction in terms of mental health. Like my dad struggled with depression a lot and was later diagnosed as bipolar. So I think that informed the atmosphere. Anyways, gosh, I feel like I'm really rambling, but
well, okay. I like that you rambled a little bit because it gave me a lot to work with, and I think because we talk about mental health a lot on here too, so I think at some point we'll probably go in that direction. But I'm interested in like your early memories of making stuff.
Okay,
and
cool.
like
yes, and I guess I was drawing on all that context in order to help me figure out why did I start making art?
Yeah.
I think it was two big things. I wanted to impress my dad because he was an artist and I thought that was cool. So I think I was seeking his approval, and I also wanted to be, stand out in the pack of my siblings. And I think I just maybe sensed the romanticism of being an artist. I'm not sure how I picked up on that, but maybe that was another sort of thing that was more or less conveyed in the home, like with music being as important as it is, and the fact that my dad did paint, even though, he had to provide for his kind of large family with one income.
Yeah.
So I think I felt like I could sense the struggle sort of, and the specialness of it. So I would admit that it's probably a pretty narcissistic pursuit,
art in general, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, wanting to stand out, wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, wanting to matter somehow, wanting to be great, wanting to impress.
Yeah.
These are all things that a person who's probably thirsty for attention and love would do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not to say that I was lacking that, but I think maybe if you grow up with a bigger family, that's probably pretty common struggle especially for middle children. Yeah.
When and how did your graffiti days come about?
Oh, that's a good one. So I guess when I was 15, and I started to care about hip hop culture, which is funny because Edmonton, Alberta, couldn't be more removed from the
Right.
roots of hip hop.
Right.
But can you though? That's the thing. That's the thing about hip hop. I guess it's universal. But anyway, it translated in Edmonton in the 90s and early 2000s. And there was an indie hip hop, prairie hip hop scene, which sounds hilarious, but it was pretty awesome and very alive, very happening. Anyway, and there were crews in Saskatchewan and Edmonton and on the West Coast, and I just happened to have some friends in high school that were into graffiti writing as well. So it was all boys, and we would hit the streets together, sneak out of our houses, tag up walls around Edmonton in the winter, especially. It was very easy because it was -30 most days, most nights. Yeah, stupid. Like we would head out in our spacesuits, like our onesie thermal shit with our Sorel boots and fur hats and big backpacks full of paint and wheat paste and paint. And it was fun. I also, we broke into some train yards, which was always very, very scary. The boys were better at that than I was, I guess, because they were just, wildin', and I was maybe a little more measured. So yeah, painting around Edmonton. Yeah, so I did that between like maybe ages of 14 through 17, and then I fell out of it just because I kind of got tired of the boy scene, like all the boys. It was just boys, and yeah, and I guess like I was starting to get more into illustration, like portraiture and editorial stuff.
What made that shift?
I mean, just the fact that I love graffiti. It's beautiful. I dig it. I'm not sure that I really get it though. Like I'm not sure that it really speaks to my soul.
Yeah.
Getting up, as they put it, quote unquote. It's,
I don't know that term.
Well, I mean that maybe, I don't know if that's a term anymore, but it was in my day, in the early 2000s and late 90s.
Yeah.
Which refers to just getting everywhere, just like your shit you become more like ubiquitous and you're just everywhere. You're kind of like haunting people's psyche with your tag. They just, whether or
that's
not
fascinating.
That's how I always interpreted it.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just a lady from Edmonton, but I found that just inherently very male.
Yeah.
Kind of like marking your territory.
Yeah, I mean, even getting up.
Exactly. I was
Even
gonna
the
say.
term, yeah.
I was gonna say it's like pretty phallic.
As
well, and yeah. So, and it just, and at that point, the getting up pursuit just felt like, oh, this is like for shits and giggles. This is for thrills. This is, let's like huff some nitrous and sniff some glue and get up. You know what I mean? Like I never did that.
Yeah.
But it's just that sort of like, blah, like just,
It sounds like there may have been almost like a hollowness to it that you needed something deeper, something richer.
Yeah, right. And I thought like some of the guys that I ran around with were good artists, like legitimately good with just like good with, had a good sense of aesthetics and a good hand, and but there, I guess, just like being, I wasn't a teenage boy, so I couldn't relate to that sort of, there was a disconnect between me and my graffiti peers. Yeah. So yeah, and then I guess getting a little more into like, becoming more aware of like feminist values, like post-feminism, helped kind of veered me away from the sort of little sausage party that my graffiti group was.
Where did the feminism come in? Were you reading books? Were you exposed to people? Like what?
Yeah, I guess I had discovered bell hooks at that point when I was like 16 or 17. I read a book by a writer named Ariel Levy called Female Chauvinist Pigs, which I've been curious. Yeah, I've been thinking about revisiting that one to see how it has aged. But at the time, it really spoke to like this sort of like little girl, basic feminism 101 sort of stuff. That's the first time I was really, my eyes were opening to understanding what patriarchy means, and systemic sexism, etc. And I guess when I was getting hip to that stuff as a young gal, I found myself more and more disenchanted by the the group I was hanging with, like I said, which was mostly dudes running around looking to get up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At what point, so when you kind of make this transition, you're more interested in portraiture and illustration.
Yeah.
What does that look like in terms of are you at that point just doing it for yourself? Are you submitting to publications? Like, what does that look like?
That's another good question. Well, first of all, I just love faces. Like, I actually have a genuine joy and passion for capturing people and enjoying their facial features and studying them and laying it down. But also, I guess there was the element of, I don't know, interactiveness or whatever, or like cross promoting, or how, I can't think of a better way to put this, but like it was involving someone else. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like, it was imagery and subject matter that wasn't just about what I wanted to portray. It involved something outside of me that might have opened up more opportunities, I guess. Like, I think I realized one day, like, oh, I could do portraits for magazines of people who are being written about, you know? And that would serve a purpose, I guess. It served more of a purpose. Like, if you need a portrait, this guy does them, you know? Maybe being like a portrait photographer, you get more work if there's like a subject to cover, maybe. Yeah. Because if it was just, you know, up to the stuff I'm interested in communicating and drawing and painting, I'm not sure that I would have much of a career, I guess. Like, I'm not sure that I would have been hired to do stuff, and that's what I was looking to do. I just wanted to become like a career illustrator.
Okay, so that leads me to something that I'm very curious about, which is you do a lot of work for musical artists. You do a lot of artwork for musical artists. Right. And I'm curious about, how do you balance sort of what you need to do for that particular artist and their brand with what you just discussed, which is your voice and your need to make what you are excited about? Yeah. What does that look like?
Okay, I think we should just, this is where the podcast should start. That's a can of worms. So I started off doing it to, like, with that sort of cross-promotional pursuit, like being of service, having a purpose, like being hireable, being a contractor, I guess. And I just know music so well, and I have so many friends in music, so I just kind of fell into it. But how do I balance, like, my own voice and vision with what they need? That's been a struggle, because I guess when I started off, I did think of it as more about me, you know? I did think of it as like more of a collaboration and less of a contract job. I saw it as, I was like had a real artiste sort of attitude in the beginning, because I think I thought I was like, well, not to say I'm not special, but like I thought I was like special. Like, you should, like, this is, we're working together, and this is you times Pearl. That was the, you know, I had more ego, I guess, more just ego, period. And so that was hard for me for a long time, because I would submit work that I thought was really good, but then the person I was working for would be like, well, can we do this? Can we do that? How about less of this and more of that? And, you know, and that would really offend me which is bullshit because I'm working for them. But ideally, I hope that people hire me knowing, just having a good sense of what my style is and what I do and what I'm good at. And that happens more and more. But in the beginning, I just, I think there are a lot of like folk musicians that I was personal friends with and who don't have a lot of money to spend, but just needed basically like a Photoshop arm, like, or an illustrator. Someone just to like lay down their CD or LP art, or just someone just to come up with something visual. And I'm not sure that they were even all that versed on my style or my art. Yeah. And
that's got to be a lot different now. I mean, now you've established yourself.
Yes,
so like,
yes, for sure.
You work with all of my favorite artists.
I know. Well, I mean, the fact that that's part of the reason why I was excited to move to the States, because there's just so much more people, more art, more everything. In Canada, it's a very tiny community in terms of like the roots, folk, hashtag quote unquote Americana stuff, roots rock, much smaller scene, and so just less options overall. Like I said, I served more of a function a lot back home up there. And down here I feel like I'm actually more sought after for what I actually do. But that took a long time. And when I get the sense that someone approaches me that doesn't seem to have a sense of what I do, like I get a lot of sort of random cold calls or cold emails from people who have seen my work for Jason Isbell. That's a big one. More but in the past it was more like Pieta Brown. She's a folk singer from Iowa that I worked with a lot. Those are like two people that I got to work with that brought me more clients, like more interest, because of the name recognition, I guess, in their respective worlds. And when I get a sense that like they're just coming to me because they know that I've worked with Isbell or Pieta or my husband John Moreland, or I'm trying to think of more. There's so many.
There's so many.
So many, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, when I get the sense that people come to me just based on that, like I'm gonna work with Jason Isbell's designer.
Yeah.
I'm good at recognizing that and not doing it.
Okay.
When I sense that there is not like a sort of connection to my work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is not even like an ego thing anymore for me. That's just like efficient and sensible, and saving everyone's money and time.
So what does the process look like? You get like a pitch from somebody. Do you pitch artists?
Every once in a while.
Okay.
Very rarely.